All right. So, Robin, thanks for coming on the podcast. I know we've been trying to do this for a little while, and we see each other in networking groups every week, sometimes every day, sometimes multiple times a day nowadays, right?
Yes.
Um, but I was really interested in not only what you're doing now, but to talk about, your history as an entrepreneur and way back, because you haven't been in Canada your whole career. You grew up in South Africa. So maybe you can go back to South Africa where you grew up and how you got into business and take us through that.
Sure. Grew up in South Africa and came to Canada 23 years ago. But growing up, we grew up poor, so we appreciate money and we look after it. My wife, who's been married for 34 years, she also
Okay.
grew up poor, better off than we were, but not rich.
Okay.
So went to high school. After that, I was conscripted into the army for a year. So I did my basics, and then I was in combat for a short while.
Does everyone in South Africa have to serve in the army at some
At that
point?
time, yes, at
At
that
that
time.
time. Okay.
Yeah, and then it ended just before my son had to go to the army. So
Oh, okay.
he wanted
And
to-
obviously your wife and you were both South African. You met in South Africa. You said you came here 23 years ago, been married 34. So, okay.
yeah, that's
I'm
right.
with you.
I did various things. I went to Bible college, became a pastor. I did all sorts of things. I went to hotel school and became a hotel manager, ran hotels and
Oh,
restaurants.
okay.
I was a salesperson, did all sorts of things. And then finally, my first wife divorced me after 10 years, kicked me out.
Okay.
And then I met Rika. And with a new family, it was a blended family. So I decided, listen, it's better time to make money. So I got into my own business through SMI, Success Motivation Institute out of Waco, Texas.
Okay.
It was
Were you here in the United States at that point, or were you still in?
still in South Africa,
Okay.
but we did well in that business and built our business, and then moved on from there into training and coaching. Learned a lot from people like Jay Abraham. Went to Los Angeles and learned from him. And then after being married for 10 years, I think it was, we came to Canada. And I just carried on specializing in collaboration and leverage training for business owners around Canada, spread to the UK and the US.
Now, the business in Texas, first of all, what did it do and how did you find it? You were on the other side of the world.
Yeah, I was
Basically.
sitting in a coffee shop. I was training hairdressers at that point in sales and marketing for Redken, and then for Weller, and then for Goldwell, for big houses.
Okay.
And I read in Success Magazine, there was a 6-page pullout about how to become successful. It was all about from Jay Abraham, how to use joint ventures.
Okay.
So it was a 5,000 3-day course. We flew to Los Angeles, did the course, and then I went down and closed the deal in Orange County with Carlton Hair International, which was from South Africa. Got the contract for them, for their South African group, for Weller, and went back to South Africa, and Weller then paid me to train them for a year. So
Okay. So what did the company in Texas do then? You said it was called SMI?
SMI, a Success Motivation Institute by Paul J. Meyer. You've probably heard of him.
I've heard of his name, yeah.
Yeah, it was basically a distributorship for his products, which were binders with cassette tapes and binders on different things, goal setting, personal goal setting,
Got it.
sales management, time management, that sort of thing. So I built a team of 18 salespeople, and then I sold 15 of them distributorships, and we built that business, and it moved on into training and then coaching.
So this was all of his materials that did they
No,
promote all kinds of motivational people or?
no, we started off with his stuff, but then I branched out. I started using other things, but our focus has always been on collaboration, leverage, joint ventures, that kind of thing. That's
Okay.
always been my
So
focus.
kind of I don't know if it was network marketing at the time, but kind of that model where or not
No,
necessarily.
no, that time it wasn't. It was
Okay.
basically, buy a distributorship, and then you get to sell these products. You can buy them for us for $495 and sell them for $1,500.
Got it.
So you'll
Traditional
make
models.
$1,000.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great because what I found was I had some insight because they were selling these distributorships for 20 grand, and they were giving away inventory at the retail. It was worth 20 grand. So the pitch was, you're getting your money back. You sell a product, you got your money back. But
Right.
we know that most people don't succeed. So we knew a lot of these programs were going to end up in garages.
Right. People buy it and they never do anything with it. They do it a little bit and they drop it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I advertised, I said, if you've got a sealed package, I'll buy it from you. So instead of $4.95, I was buying them for $75 and splitting the difference with my salespeople.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you realized that there was leverage there.
There's always leverage.
Right.
When I worked for Redken, the guy that I worked for, it's very interesting. His father and uncle were in Auschwitz, and they came to South Africa. They were both chemists, and they got to South Africa with $100. And they said, they looked around and they said, what are you going to do? Now we're in Africa. What is the need? What need
Right.
can we fill as entrepreneurs and as chemists? And they said, black people want to be white in South Africa.
Right.
So they created a skin lightening cream, and they became billionaires.
Now, this was after World War II, right? So they survived the death camps at Auschwitz. They go to South Africa, and there was apartheid then. So it was a different world. So, right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that different from the rest of the world.
No.
The propaganda makes it look a lot worse than it was. But anyway, bottom line was they became wealthy. The son bought the rights to Redken. And he said to me, he said, Robin, there's one book you got to read, because I've trained other companies for him as well. And he said, this book is called Horse Sense by Al Reese and Jack Trout. And it's about find a horse and ride it. And it's about leverage. And I read this book 3 times because I think coming from billionaires, it must be a good book.
Right.
That taught me a lot. And then I got to J. Abraham and people like that and continued to specialize in that.
All right. Well, in the show notes, when we release this, we'll put links to all those books if they're still available. I assume most of them are, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And we can put those in from J. Abraham and from that book as well.
Yeah.
Because I always like sharing that kind of stuff when you have a lifetime of knowledge and the things that you accumulate and you want to share it with people.
Sure.
All right. So let's see. So SMI was in what year?
That was in 1987.
Okay. And then so 87, you weren't here yet, right?
No, we got here in 97.
Okay. So what happened during those 10 years with SMI? You were building that distributorship from South Africa?
Yeah, I built the distributorship. We became the top distributorship. And then we worked on from there, got into our own business, did consulting and coaching, and then basically retired. And we left South Africa, came here and just carried on teaching business owners how to use leverage and collaboration in small businesses because they don't use it.
Right. All the whole model that you did with SMI, the same type of concept, right?
No, it was more based on leverage and joint ventures, leveraging underutilized resources and working with other people to leverage things and collaborating with other businesses. Big businesses do that, but small businesses, most of them don't even have databases.
Right.
It's really scary. It's no wonder a lot of them will go under now.
Right.
Because they're not set up correctly.
Right. So give me some examples of what you were teaching people about leverage and collaboration, because I'm sure a lot of business owners came to you. They didn't even know what you were talking about at first, right?
Yeah, well, I coined the phrase joint venture broker.
Okay.
And so we were focusing on joint ventures, and we said, look, you need residual income in your business. You need repeat sales. You need to lower your overhead. You need to utilize underutilized resources, whether they're your resources or somebody else's. But everybody's got space, employees, money, access, databases, memberships, all sorts of things that can be leveraged. And once you start leveraging that, instead of buying it, use what is already there. If I don't have a lawnmower, I can use my buddy's lawnmower, and because he doesn't mow his lawn every day.
Right.
But if you apply that in business, everybody's got underutilized space, equipment, employees, trucks, vehicles.
Right.
And it just goes on and on. And then you can piggyback. So for example, if I advertise you on my LinkedIn account, it doesn't cost me anything. It builds relationship between us and it gives you more exposure.
Right.
And if you incentivize that and you reciprocate, then it's just unstoppable. You can achieve a lot of things.
So what kind of business? I mean, I can see the example in if you're a baker and you're starting up a small bakery, a commercial bakery, you don't have to go and rent your own space. You can find another bakery that doesn't use the bakery in the middle of the night or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
use the hours that they don't bake, right? And you can sublease it out or whatever you're talking about. So what are the kind of businesses that you've worked with over the years that,
Well,
you know,
I've got,
more
if
successful
you
than
look at
others?
leverageadvantage.com, there's a lot of videos there, but one of the ideas that I liked
Okay.
was I worked with a dentist here in BC, in Surrey, and they wanted to access the American market because the Canadian dollar was low. And they said, let's get to the American market because they can use their Medicaid to get medical services, dental services here. So I approached a laser eye surgery company that had a lot of American customers in Washington State. And we said to them, we'll pay you $10,000. We'll design a letter. I'll design a letter. You send this out to your database, and you say, as a gift from the laser eye surgery, as a thank you gesture to our loyal customers, we're offering you a free service in British Columbia. Come up to British Columbia, have a look at Vancouver. We'll give you free accommodation for one night for you and your family. And we'll offer you, with a dentist, we'll offer you a free medical examination, tooth whitening, and something else. I can't remember what else. You can bring the whole family, but not your dog. And
Okay.
so they basically sent this thing out, and the dental company, we did a deal with a hotel next door, and so they doubled their profits. And then we
So,
did a deal with a talk show host in Washington State, and we said to him, come on up, we'll do all your dental work for free, you and your family, no charge, on one condition. If you like it, tell your audience in Washington State. Same thing happened. The only one, he came up on his own. He had some tooth whitening, and I think they did one filling. Cost us nothing. He went back and advertised us all over Washington State. We doubled the profits again.
and it's easy for people from Washington State to come up to where you are.
Yeah, it's close
It's like
by.
going from New Jersey to New York.
Yeah, 2.5 hours to Seattle.
Yeah.
So, when you do
Good
that, you're
example.
piggybacking on what they already have. They already have a relationship with all these people,
Right.
giving them something for nothing. There's a low barrier, and then we just leverage that.
Right. Yeah, that's like I connect with a lot of social media influencers because of the following that they have. They have access to more people than I have access to, and you want to get
Yeah,
access to promoted to their database. So it makes a lot of sense.
exactly.
So you've been teaching this idea for 30 some odd years to people.
Yeah, and it's timeless. It works because together I got this little thing behind me. You can see that cabinet used to be a drinks cabinet, and as we get older, it turned into a medicine
Right.
cabinet, and now I got a banner in front of it that says, "Together we can do amazing things." But we really do. We're unlimited in what we can accomplish together, and as long as it's reciprocal,
Right.
then it
Right.
works.
Where it works for both sides.
Yeah, both
Right.
must benefit in some way.
Right. Yeah. So it's really that people are just not creative enough thinkers to look at a situation and say, how can I make this work better? Like you said, what resources are out there
Yeah,
to help me and I can help them at the same time? I think that goes a long way in a time like this when people are not really good thinkers, right? And they're not thinking outside the box and they're not saying, well, how can I make lemonade when I don't even have lemons? Oh, wait, this other guy has lemons and he has so many lemons, he doesn't know what to do with them all. They're going to rot in his store. He's not
yeah.
going to make any money. So I can do something with them, right? I mean, that's the basic concept.
Exactly. When I ran a holiday in Bulawayo, Rhodesia, which became Zimbabwe, for one
Right.
year, 1979. And because of sanctions on Rhodesia, there's a war going on there.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful country, but it was, as you know, it doesn't exist anymore, really.
Right.
But at that time, we couldn't get, for the hotel, we couldn't get oil, we couldn't get shellfish, we couldn't
Because
get
of the
Scotch
war.
whiskey, because
Because of
of
the
the war,
war. Is that why?
no sanctions.
Because of the
Because
sanctions from
I
other
don't
countries.
force Zimbabwe
Right.
to give up. Anyway, so we had to trade. We traded petrol coupons or gasoline coupons. We traded antiques. We traded foreign currency. We traded oil. We traded all these things so that we could survive, so the hotel could survive, and we personally could survive.
Right.
So we've been through what's coming to North America now is pretty shocking. People are still in denial. They don't
Yeah.
realize they're going into depression now. So they have to become really inventive and creative, and so that they can cope with what's coming. And they've got to think outside the box. They can't do
Yeah.
what they used to do.
Right. But you know what? You and I both know 80% of the people will not. They're going to get
Oh, no.
crushed. There's going
Oh,
to be
yeah.
some industries that do well, but it's usually the people that are creative, that use their resources, that have their networks, think outside the box. How can I make this better? I mean, even restaurants, there's got to be ways for these restaurants to leverage things to make it easier on themselves because they don't have any capital coming out of this, you
No,
know?
they can't. The average business can't go if the restaurant has got a 32% food cost percentage. They can't go down 50% in their sales and survive.
Right. They can't
So
survive. They can't stay open.
a lot of them are doing takeout, but they still have a lease. They still have all the space that they're leasing.
Right.
So they trying and they are pivoting. I was on a call this morning with a very smart, a very interesting talk, and
Okay.
the guy was talking about how companies are pivoting and why Zoom is now more valuable than some of the airline companies, because Zoom is the new airline company basically. That's where
Right.
it's going, and the
Yeah.
way companies are pivoting and changing and uh, repurposing their resources. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Big companies.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I was talking to a gentleman who's going to come on the podcast probably in a couple of weeks, who's an inventor, and he makes he's an outdoorsman. He's in Arizona. So he makes a pack, and he designed a thing to go in the pack that turns the water into a mist, because they use a lot of those misters down there because it's so
Right.
dry.
Hmm.
So you can either retrofit your own pack or you can buy his pack. Well, when this happened, people are going out and doing it. He retrofitted these packs to put in sterilization gels into the pack that could, so you could take it right into a hospital or right into a gym and spray the thing on your back. And he's selling them like hotcakes. Now, if he wasn't creative enough to think outside the box and say, what can I do here? He
Yes.
would have been out of business because nobody's buying these things. They're coming off the shelves at whatever they were at, REI and these other stores. They're not selling them.
Yeah, well,
So
that's the thing. I see immigrants doing that. I see these two Jewish people that came out of Auschwitz,
yeah,
you know, just wrecked and got there with 100
right.
bucks.
Yeah,
And they became billionaires because they looked for a problem to solve,
yeah,
and they found a problem. And instead of just complaining and whining about what's going on, and you've got to find a solution. And smart people do that, and they
yeah.
survive.
There's no question about it. Well, it's unfortunate because somebody coming out of those horrific situations, you'd think, my God, how could you even, move forward? But there's certain people that look to the future and figure it out, and there's other people that just fall apart, unfortunately. But that's why you coach, and that's why I do this, and we try to reach as many people as we can, and
Yeah,
we get through to 20% of them, and out of that group, only probably another 20% of that group does anything, and you go from one to another. But it's interesting the way you're doing things, because it's not like you are, with the exception of your gold business, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's not like you're out there talking to people and say, "Hey, this is the way to do it. Join my business." You're helping people with their existing businesses and
yeah.
saying, "Hey, let's see what we can do here." The
Yeah.
dentist business is a good example.
There's a lot of things people can do, but people have got a sunk cost fallacy, which is I spent so much time qualifying for this career as a lawyer or whatever it is. I can't change and now start mending bicycles because
Right,
it's not on, right? Because this is who I am. This is my identity. So they sunk all this cost and time
right.
and identity into this thing, and they can't. They hooked. So it's like the baboons that are running around and they stick their. The farmers in South Africa used to have to catch the baboons because they used to strip the maize fields. And the baboons they just wreck it. So
Yeah,
they get a pumpkin, hollow it out, tie the pumpkin to a tree, and the hole in the pumpkin is just big enough for the baboon to get his hand in, and then inside they got the pits. So the baboon gets his hand in, grabs the pits, he makes a fist, and he can't pull his hand out, so he's stuck. And and
he
now
doesn't think smart enough to let go.
no, he doesn't let go, and they catch him or they shoot him or whatever they do.
Right,
And a lot of people are like that. They do that. People that didn't leave South Africa when they should have. For
right.
example, the same thing, greed. Right? Their greed or their ego overcomes.
Yeah, right. No, you're right. People are so, and they don't realize that it doesn't matter what your sunk costs are. That's gone. It
Yeah,
only matters if this is working going forward. You can't be attached to like you're going to make it up somehow by
yeah,
sticking with something that's not working,
exactly.
regardless of what you did, your education, the time you put, the business you built. It's
Yeah,
it's it's irrelevant. You're not going to get it back. It's gone. So you can't. If it's not working, you got to change it. It doesn't matter what the cost. There is no cost to change if it's not working.
Yeah,
because the cost is already done. It's already
the
gone.
cost is to stay there because you keep on losing.
That's the cost, right?
We
Cost
just
is to do nothing. That's a bigger cost than thinking that somehow you're going to make up what you lost in the past, and that's just not going to happen. People
yeah.
do it with investments too. They're they're so tied to whatever their loss was that they don't want to make a change. Like, well, this is already done. I got to wait for it to come back. Why? It's either this is a better alternative or not. It has nothing to do with what you lost in the past, right?
The guy that's giving them advice doesn't want to get a chargeback on his commission, so
Right, of
he keeps
course.
telling them the same lies, and they keep buying into it.
Right.
And it's not the smart thing to do, but most people don't do the smart thing. That's why they have troubles.
So how many, off the top of your head, how many businesses would you say that you've coached over the years and worked with
I,
that have been, that were able to listen to you and were successful in following your advice? Because obviously not everybody listens, right? We know that. So
yeah, well, I've worked with a lot of people, and I've done a lot of seminars, and but I don't know how many of them. I know some have done extremely well. Some have made
right,
millions, and I could name them, but I wouldn't. But they have made a lot of money because they took it and they ran with the ball and they did better than I did, which is
right,
exactly what we want. But the problem with that kind of joint venture is you've got to be able to find somebody that is honest, that can deliver the goods, that
right,
will pay you, will carry on paying you,
right.
will reciprocate. And then you got to track that, and you've got to find a way to track it and find a way to get paid. So it can become a complicated process if you do it wrong.
Yeah, you got to be able to kind of police the situation and make yourself comfortable enough knowing that the other guy is not going to be tempted to cheat or to fudge the numbers. And trust is often a big part of things because you can't always track everything, not at the small business level. It's very hard.
No, that's why it's important, to don't be unequally yoked. Find somebody that has a similar value system,
Right.
because you're more likely to succeed in business. But your philosophy drives your choices, and if his philosophy is different, even religion is important. If the guy's religion is
Yeah. Your
such,
beliefs don't match up. It's going to be hard to, right.
yeah, because you're unequally yoked. You're
Yeah.
going in different directions
Right.
psychologically.
Yeah. No. And you both have to be able to lose the same thing if you don't work together. So if you have as much to lose as
Yes.
the other guy, then you know that it can work. But I like the philosophy because it's kind of the way I deal with things from a legal standpoint, because I can make deals work if
Mhm.
people are honest and they're willing to come and compromise in all cases. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can design, like you said, you can structure a deal that works for both parties. If
Yeah.
you have the money and he's got the resources and he doesn't have the money, there's ways to do it to protect you, to keep everybody honest and to give you extra because you're waiting longer. But a lot of people don't, I think what you do is really, it's really an exercise in creative thinking. It's really a way to teach people to say, hey, it's not black and white and you can look at things differently. And you just think that was just inherently in you, or you discovered it through these people that you studied with and got connected with? Like, how do you think that happened where you're now doing this?
I
Doesn't
think,
happen to everybody.
well, if I look at my life, it was inherently in me. But I lived in 18 places by the time I was 17.
Okay.
So, my parents moved around a lot. We had a great family, but never had any money.
Like
So,
around the world?
no, in South
In
Africa.
South Africa. Okay.
And then I moved around a lot. So,
Right.
became an adult. But I just think I had the germ in me, but it was brought
Exposure.
to fruition through the right people.
Yeah. So constant exposure to people, and then, but also you were able to absorb it. You were able to accept it. A lot of people come across things, and this happens to me all the time. I'm at an event or something. Somebody mentions a book, and I'm hungry for knowledge, so I'll go home and read the book. 2 weeks later, we're back together. Somebody says such and such, and I say, "Oh, I just want to thank Robin for recommending that book. The whatever I read, it was fantastic." You look at me and go, "What book?" Well, what did I say? Nobody in the room read the book. Nobody heard them. And I think that's what it is. Like, a lot of people aren't open to at the right time, like it doesn't sync up with what the opportunity is or what the difficulty is. And they got to be ready to receive it, right, from you or from whatever. So maybe it was a combination of you being ready to receive it and open to it and all of your experiences. And, it all kind of fits together. Like, you couldn't redo this if you tried.
That's what you do with it. Two things. One thing is I bought a whole set of Tony Robbins audio
Yeah.
cassettes, and it changed my life. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. It's great stuff.
First stuff that came out, and it had a dramatic effect on me. It was wonderful. Many years later, here in Canada, we were walking down the road, my wife and I, and there's a garage sale, and this huge fellow, very unsuccessful looking character, and lying on the table in front of me was an identical set of tapes from Tony Robbins. I said, wow, that's a fantastic set. He said, I started listening to it. I listened to half of a cassette. This guy's obviously a scam artist.
See, there you go.
Never listened to it again. So I bought it from him and put it on my shelf just to honor the cassettes.
Right.
And the J. Abraham thing, the same thing that I was on, I met a fellow here who had been on exactly the same event and never applied anything. And he didn't like it because he didn't like Jay.
Right. Just something turned him off, or he wasn't open to it. But that's why you keep fighting the good fight. You keep talking to people. You keep trying to educate people. And you did the right thing by buying the guy's cassettes, making sure they didn't end up in a trash can somewhere.
Yeah.
And they should, because I love Tony Robbins stuff. And yeah, sure, does he have a big ego? Yeah. The guy's very successful. And that's one of the reasons what makes him successful, because he's driven and all that kind of stuff. But there's always somebody that's going to say, they're going to say, oh, that's a stupid idea, Rob. And they're not going to go down and make a deal with the people in Washington State. And they're going to come up here, going to bring them up here to present. But it's because, and then they don't do it.
Yeah,
But that guy didn't even get past square one, and he had it right in front of him. It was right there.
Yeah.
All the motivation he needed to be successful. Now he's selling all his stuff in a garage sale.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. So let's talk about what you're doing now. I mean, you still do coaching, right? You still work with people teaching them about leverage and all that kind of stuff?
I still do some coaching. I'm selective who I coach, but it works well. But 6 years ago, we got involved with a German gold company. We built over the 6 years. I was gone for 3 years, but in spite of that, we built a company, a group of 16,000 people in 82 countries.
Okay.
It's a gold company. They sell gold, and it's like a network marketing company, but it's a little different. It's very different. It's unique in the world, and so we got involved with them, and we still do that. It's a good company. It's solid, and I believe everybody should own gold.
How did you come across that company and gold and all that type of stuff?
Good friend of mine told me about it, George, and sat down, had a look at the thing, got involved, and we've done well. And I've trained and coached a lot of the people in my group, but I'm very fortunate. I've got some fantastic leaders and people in my personal group, and again, out of 16,000, not everybody does anything, but it's
right. Well, you get enough, right? You only need 16,000. You wouldn't be doing anything else. You'd be retired. Just count your money. But is it similar to network marketing in that there's a residual income portion to it?
Yeah, there's residual income. You benefit from what other people do. You leverage their resources.
So it's a network of people around the world.
It's like a giant joint venture with a good product, physical.
Yeah, are you the largest producer for them? I mean, 18,000 people is a lot.
No, 16,000 is people.
You're not.
The total amount is 900,000 people.
Oh, wow. It's a big organization.
So I'm just a tiny little piece of that, just a small little bald guy wandering around, wondering what's happening.
Now, what's the name of the company? Carrot Bars, I think?
Carrot Bars.
With a K. Like gold, like carrots of gold, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good business. It works really well. People make money. Again, you got to work. It doesn't happen by accident.
Right, of course. So how do you sell? Are you doing more selling gold now, or are you doing more like recruiting people to be part of your network?
I like the recruiting because you get to change people's lives. A lot of people are losing a lot of them have lost their jobs and haven't realized it yet. A lot of people are in denial. They've been getting a few government handouts and things and living off their savings.
It's going to run out.
They don't realize it's going to get a lot worse. And instead of planning for that, you get it's the ant and the grasshopper. You got to be you got to be an ant. You got to prepare for that. Be frugal, save, get gold. I used to say to people before this happened, I was going to give a talk in Vancouver, and the talk was how to prepare for the coming recession.
Yeah.
The guy that was running it said, "Look, we don't want any doom and gloom here." Well, now
this was before this all happened.
Yeah, a month before, and then there's a big snowstorm, so it was canceled. But I can tell you, I used to say, and I still do, there's 5 things you need: God, guts, guns, gold, and groceries.
I like that.
They used to laugh, but they're starting to wonder about it.
Yeah, now you're like thinking, maybe I do need those guns. And definitely groceries is an issue. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's shortages. I've never seen it before where you go to the store. I mean, look, we grew up in countries that are very abundant
Yes.
and in this part of the world, and you take it for granted that things are just there. Now you go to the supermarket and there's no toilet paper on the shelf.
Yeah.
There's no
No
Lysol
doubt.
spray. It's crazy. I was in Indiana. I told you, taking my
Yeah.
son to college. We're going to empty his room out, and bring him back. And they were and Indiana's not as big. And I know you guys haven't had a big hotspot either up there,
Mhm.
but they were short on stuff too. There was stuff you couldn't get Lysol. You couldn't get certain things
Yeah.
off the shelves. They're just gone because we're all part of the same distribution system.
Exactly.
You're going to get affected by what happens in New York when there's a shortage,
Yeah.
or the meat industry in the United States starts having a problem because even people are sick.
Yeah.
Production goes down by 50%. It's going to affect you in Canada because we all rely on each other. Right? Don't a lot of raw materials for drugs come from like China? So
They
if
do.
there's a pandemic there, it's going to affect the availability of things here. So we live in a global world, whether people like it or not.
Yeah, and it's being leveraged. The chance of dying of COVID-19 in BC
Yeah, very
point
low.
it's 0.00003%.
Yeah, I saw the sheet that you updated 2 days ago on your website.
Scary. And
Yeah,
so you've got a better chance of getting killed by a toilet
right.
of or a plane accident. I actually wrote an article on my blog about that today. But people have, I think it's being used as a trigger, as a black swan. Um,
In certain areas. Yeah,
I
because
don't
like they equate it to, they think it's all like New York. I mean, New York is very hard because we're very densely populated. People are very close together, but that's not true everywhere in the country.
No, and you can't paint it all with one brush. But I do think part of the deal was governments want control and taxes. And
Yeah.
if you look at what they're allowing and what they're doing, it becomes obvious. But we have to plan around that. When the wind changes, we've got to change our sails. Some things we can't change.
Well, we're in a new world. There's some things we're going to have to be ready to change, I think, going
Exactly.
forward.
And it's
And maybe we'll
exciting.
get smarter people in government that can deal with things like this as opposed to acting like idiots. When you got idiots on your side, I got idiots down on my side too. So,
Most politicians are not business people, and
no.
they make different senses. So I think for me, the opportunity is change my sales, adjust, adapt, and do better.
Right, because that's all you can control.
Yeah.
And that's all I can control, right? And that's about a lot about looking forward and saying, how can I make this better for me? And how can I work within what's happening? Because I can't control what everyone does.
No.
Yeah, and make and leverage things like you said, and look at opportunities and find ways. If you're a restaurant and you're 50% capacity, maybe there's ways you can use your space differently. I don't know if you own the building and so forth, or the landlord says, all right, well maybe I could split this in half and
Yeah.
rent half of it out for something else, and you can have a smaller space. I don't know.
Yeah. When you see it's not working, cut bait. My wife and I owned half of a company. We walked away. We lost some money, but we saw the way it was going. It was going to go down, down, down.
Right.
And
Yeah, you can't keep making bad decisions on top of other bad decisions. Once the money's gone,
we walked
that's what
away.
people do. They keep throwing good money after bad, like it's going to get better. And they're emotionally committed. That's what it is. They're emotionally committed to the decisions they made in the past. They
Yes.
won't change it going forward.
The past is pulling them down, and
Yeah.
it's cutting bait and saying, "Hey, you know what? All good. Let's move on." But their security is in their identity. Their security is in the wrong things.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think
I once met a
that's
guy. His
killed.
saying was that the past is a bucket of ashes. It's all burned up already. You can't use it again.
Yeah.
Don't even look at it. Just make your decisions going forward. It has nothing to do with what you did in the past. It has to do with what you do going forward.
And we
Can't
still,
use the
what?
past.
We live in North America. We're very fortunate to live here.
Yeah.
People don't realize how lucky. I hear about people. Oh, I'm going to go and live in the Philippines. I'm going to live here. I'm going to live there.
No, the
Well,
rest of the world's nothing like like North America. Nothing.
we've got fantastic resources and opportunities here. I would never want to live anywhere else. I live exactly where I want to live by design, and I don't intend moving because we've got a fantastic we're surrounded with opportunities.
Yeah, there's plenty here.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It's going to see what happens. So if somebody wants to, well, first of all, I know you do it limited on a limited basis, but if somebody wanted to interact with you, learn from you a little bit, how would they get a hold of you? They go to your website?
Yeah, go to my website, robinjelliot.com. It's really
Right.
a blog that I've fixed up a little. But robinjelliot.com, 2 L's, 2 T's. Or they can just
Right, because I typed it in once with one T and it didn't get anywhere.
no, or they can just call me.
Two T's. Okay, well, we'll put your contact information in the show notes, and if they want to learn about the gold business that you're involved in too, they can
Sure.
they can go on the website and see it there as well.
Oh yeah, no, it's all on that little blog. It's really a blog, but they're welcome, or they can give me a call. We can talk about it, see if it's a good fit for them. The most important thing is what's good for them, their resources, what they want, and if it's a fit, we'll find a way to help them. If I can't do it, somebody else can. And I think what you're doing with the podcast is fantastic, because
Thanks.
I listen to them, and I think the way it's marketing you.
Yeah, sure.
You're leveraging yourself. I mean, it's a fantastic idea, and it works.
Yeah. Well, I met a lot of really good people like yourself who have really good ideas to share. And I think that, like you said, there are people I'm sure that'll never listen because they're the ones that took the tapes from Tony Robbins and threw them in the garbage after they heard half a tape. But, with a lot of the people that you and I are meeting online through all these Zoom meetings now around the world are, people that are looking to better themselves, looking to better other people. They're open-minded to the idea. So I think that's a nice community to become a part of and to meet all these people around the world, because it's a little refreshing. It's better to hang out with, what do they say? Soar with the eagles, don't flock with the turkeys.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of eagles, and I'm reading a book. Well, I have read. It's called "Thou Shalt Prosper." It's by Rabbi Daniel Lapin.
Okay.
He's actually a South African who lives in Washington State. He's done well. He speaks all over the world. But it's all about the way to think about money from a Jewish perspective, from a rabbinic perspective, and it's fantastic. So I read this book. I've recommended it to so many people. I ask them, "Have you read the book?" "No, well, I didn't get around to it. No, didn't have time." And
Thou shalt prosper.
Thou shalt prosper, not shalt. It should be shalt, but it's shall.
Shall, Shall.
Yeah, and he's
Daniel Lapin, Lapin.
Yeah, and you can find him.
I'm gonna look it up.
It's a fantastic book. So I suggest to people, read this book, read that book, and
they don't do it.
They don't listen. And so if you don't listen, well, go and learn from somebody.
Whatever. We don't want everybody to be successful. There won't be any room for us. So that's.
I always say to people, find somebody who's achieved more than somebody like yourself, smarter than me, more connected than me, more motivated than me, more successful than me. Those are the guys I want to associate with, because I can only go up.
Right. That's the thing. If everybody had that objective, we would all be moving up. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a shrinking pie. There's no limit to what we can accomplish. So people think it's a shrinking pie. If he's going to have money, I won't have money.
Right.
That's socialism. That's
exactly.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people with that mindset, and it's partly because they've been spoiled. They're lazy, and they find an excuse not to succeed. But actually, it's easier to succeed than to be broke.
It's a lot more fun too.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's good about being broke is that it's temporary. Being poor is permanent. So if you're broke, you can, if you're good enough, you can find a way out of it. If you're poor, probably your situation where not many people have made it out of that. Although you grew up poor and here you are, right?
Well, there's a lot of people that can't help themselves. And,
of course, because their situation.
I don't like to help parasites. People that can work but choose not to.
Right.
I was one day, I was downtown, and there was this fellow on a bicycle begging from people for money for food. And I said to him, you got a bicycle, you're healthy, you're younger than I am. Why don't you offer me something in return for the money? Offer to clean my shoes, offer to give me a ride on your bike, offer to wash my car.
To deliver something for you, whatever.
Yeah. And he says no, I'm busy. Well, what are you busy doing that you're begging for? But this is the mindset. Unfortunately, people give them money.
It's funny. I'll tell you a story. And my friend, he's passed away since then, but he lived in didn't live in Vancouver. He lived further towards me, like Toronto or somewhere. And he would come to New York every year to travel Christmas, whatever. So he goes to this hotel on Christmas, and this poor man comes up to him, younger, like in his 20s, begging. He lost his wallet and he needs some money, whatever. So he gives him $20. So a year later, my friend is back at the same hotel. The same kid comes up to him, says the same thing. And he said, "Are you kidding me? You pulled this on me last year." And he said to the doorman, "Is this guy here all the time?" He goes, "All the time." Tells the same story. He's a handler. probably makes more money than if he went and got a job because he's just squirreling money away. So it's not yeah, it's unfortunate because when you see people that are down and out, the natural thing is to feel bad and want to help, but the other part of your brain says maybe this is a scam, maybe this isn't real, maybe this guy can do better for himself instead of sitting in the street. And I'm not saying that homelessness can be solved just by people changing their mindset. Some people have bad situations, they got mental problems, they got
Oh
drug
yeah.
problems, but there's a lot of people that take advantage of the system too, so
I
unfortunately.
always like to be very selective. We give money to people, but we know who we're giving to and we know why we're giving it to them. And that
Yeah.
we feel good about doing it. And I think you got to be responsible, got to be a good steward of what we have.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
there's organizations you can support that are good organizations and doing good things with their money. I never pledge money on the phone. I get a call from the
mm,
whatever benevolent association. I don't know who's calling me.
yeah,
Well, can we count on you for a donation? No. Well, how come? Well,
uh,
send me something to look at. I don't know. I don't know who you are. It's not a Zoom call where I know even that could be fake, right? So that's what'll be in the future. We'll be getting telemarketing Zoom calls in the future, and they'll be calling us. And we'll be like, oh, you have to, you have to turn them off. So instead of regular phone calls. So Robin, I thank you very much. I know it's earlier by you, but me, it's almost 5 o'clock on Friday with dinner with my family, and then we got the weekend. So you got any plans for Memorial Day, or is that not a big holiday up in Canada?
know what? To me, I haven't had a holiday for years because to me,
Your
I
whole life's a holiday. You do the
I work,
same stuff.
I want to work. I love what I do. My wife's got to stop me working. But Mitch, it's a privilege to know you, and thank you for the opportunity
I
to.
appreciate you coming on, Robin, and we will probably see each other in the next networking event next week.
Oh, we will.
All
Good
right.